Hello, welcome to Bored and Confused, where I review shows based on two criteria. One, was I bored? Two, was I confused? Today's show is Heathers, the musical, playing Off-Broadway. Now, before I get into it, please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps me grow this channel, and hopefully at some point, I may actually be able to do this as a part-time job. All right, Heathers. My history with Heathers begins with the movie, which I saw around the time it came out in 1989. Yeah, I'm that old. I was in high school at the time, and I remember liking it, but not being really obsessed. Fast forward to 2014, I saw the Off-Broadway run at New World Stages, same place where it's playing now. It's probably the same theater. And I had a similar reaction. I liked it, but I didn't love it. Now, a little background, the show was a collaboration between Lawrence O'Keefe and Kevin Murphy. O'Keefe had written Bat Boy in the early 2000s, which I was lucky enough to see off-Broadway, and I absolutely loved. Around the same time, Murphy and director Andy Fickman worked on Reefer Madness. So all three of these guys were kind of swimming in this pool of satirical, darkly comic musicals, and it just made sense that they end up collaborating on Heathers, which premiered in Los Angeles in 2010. This current production brings some updates with it. There's a new second act song for the lead character Veronica that gives her a big 11 o'clock moment. Also, the original number Blue, which trivialized date rape, has been replaced by a song called You're Welcome, which was actually written for the high school version of the show, which is wild to me that this show is being done in high schools. But I guess Grease is also pretty edgy if you think about it. It must have taken a lot of whitewashing to get the show to a place where high schools, especially in middle America, can perform it. Also worth noting, the Off-Broadway cast album recently went gold, and the show's become a huge hit in the UK with several West End runs and revivals. So there's definitely a cult following. So what is Heathers about? Basically, it's about terrible people in high school. Three girls, all named Heather, rule the school. The queen bee is Heather Chandler, and she rules with an iron fist. Veronica, an intelligent but unpopular girl, sees an opportunity to join their ranks. They give her a makeover and a seat at the cool table, but of course it comes with a price. She has to hurt a friend, and along the way, she also picks up a boyfriend, JD, a dark, misanthropic teen in a trench coat. Now, this is a black comedy, and black comedies don't always work as musicals, but sometimes they do. I mean, Sweeney Todd is a great example. But Heathers, in some way, almost feels darker than Sweeney because these characters feel very real and current. And remember, this movie came out before Columbine, so in retrospect, it's disturbingly ahead of its time. I tend to look at Heathers as a kind of Faustian story. Veronica sells her soul to gain popularity. At first, Heather Chandler, dressed in red, feels like she's the devil figure, but ultimately we realize it's JD who turns out to be the real darkness in her life. It's kind of a clever misdirect, and it raises the question, who's the bigger threat? Chandler might have been awful, but as she points out after her death, she kept everyone in check. Without her, chaos breaks loose. Yes, that's a spoiler alert. There are murders in this show, but you probably knew that coming in. And that's kind of the central tension, this idea of fixing society by eliminating its worst elements. So, was I bored? Not at all. This is a full-length show, 2.5 hours with an intermission, and I was fully engaged for the whole thing. The energy is high right from the start. We're introduced to all the high school archetypes, and then the Heathers make their entrance wearing their primary colored plaid skirts and matching blazers. And the lighting designer blasts them with a color that matches what they're wearing, and it's dramatic and it's thrilling. Their entrance is underscored by this adulatory motif that I find so funny. Like, here are these evil teen queens being introduced with this heavenly music. It sets the tone right away. And then we get Candy Store, their big power number. It's catchy, it's sharp, it's got punch. And that's one of the things I love about Lawrence O'Keefe's work. He doesn't just write funny lyrics, but the music itself is very funny. There's humor in the arrangement, in the style, in the motifs. He did this with Bat Boy too, which I was lucky enough to see off-Broadway. He just knows how to use music to make jokes. And that said, I do have one confession with Candy Store. Maybe the lyrics make sense on paper, but in the moment, I always feel like I'm missing something. The phrase candy store makes me think of the idiom like a kid in a candy store, but that's not the vibe here. These girls aren't gleeful and overwhelmed with joy. They're manipulative and terrifying. So I'm not really sure what we're trying to evoke with the image. I don't really get it. This is the phrase candy store doesn't really ever come back or is ever really explained as far as I'm concerned. Now, about the score in general, they do pre-show music, playing hits from the late 80s. And if you've seen my other videos, you know I'm not a big fan of pre-show music before musicals. You're reminding the audience of iconic songs from the 80s and then immediately asking us to listen to a new score that's not quite in that style. And Heathers isn't really written in an 80s style, except for maybe the song Big Fun, which really reminds me of Peter Gabriel's Big Time. But mostly it's contemporary pop Broadway, which is fine because these themes are still very relevant, though part of me does wish it kind of leaned more into that 80s vibe. So was I confused? Yeah, a few times, mainly around who can kick whose ass and when. Early in the show, JD beats up the football guys in this really hilarious segment, but then later they turn around and they kick his ass. And then there's a moment where Veronica beats up the football players on her own, who she needed protection from earlier. So it kind of just seems convenient that certain characters become Matrix level fighters whenever it serves the plot. And there's a big moment where Veronica fakes her death, and I didn't get it in the play. Now in the movie it makes more sense because she realizes JD is trying to kill her, so she fakes her death to throw him off. But in the musical, it just felt like an unnecessary beat. She fakes her death and then immediately follows him to school to confront him. So I just didn't feel like it was necessary. I actually had to look this up afterwards to remind myself of what that was all about. And that brings me to a broader issue with the second act. It really loses some steam towards the final 15 or 20 minutes. And I think that's because it leans really hard into the cinematic storytelling. We've got scenes in a closet. We've got scenes on a football field. Earlier, there's a scene where they're in a field tipping cows. And these work really well in movies, but they're really hard to pull off on a stage, especially a small one like New World Stages. For the most part, this play is staged really well on this space, but there's some moments like when the dead teens become the closet door that Veronica is hiding behind. It felt a little strange. The cow tipping was like, okay. And then the end with the football field run where Veronica gets injured in this fight, but we don't really quite see how, and then all of a sudden she's limping. And in the movie, it's shot with them running across a football field. It's cinematic, but in the theater, it doesn't do what theater does well. It just feels like it's trying to copy what works cinematically. So let's talk about casting. This is where the production really shines. It's a much more diverse cast than the original film, which was all white people, and it really works. This show isn't about race, so the casting can be flexible, and they've cast people who are perfect for these roles. And everyone nails it. I could praise every single person in this cast. They're all great. It was also really interesting to see Carrie Butler now playing an adult. I'm so used to seeing her as kids. She was in Bat Boy, also written by Lawrence O'Keefe, so this is kind of full circle for her coming back to Heathers. Now, I always think of Carrie as being youthful and quirky, and she's great in this, but it's kind of an adjustment for me to try to get used to her being an adult because she's probably 50 now, but she still looks very young. So I could have seen this role being played by someone who traditionally plays more adult roles, but Carrie was great in this and she made me laugh. So final thoughts. This is really a great show. The music is very exciting and smart and clever. The performances are excellent. The design elements are solid. The lighting is terrific and the energy never lets up. I think they've improved the show since 2014. It feels tighter, sharper, more confident. Feels a little lighter too, less dark. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. It's a musical, so probably a good thing. So if Heathers sounds like your kind of twisted fun, head to New World Stages and check it out. It's really a good time.
Don't confuse me. If you do, then you'll lose me.